Imagine you're in rural Greece. The year is old, so anytime before the 1990s nowadays. And your young shepherd urchins ask you to make more halloumi, because it's a staple of summer, but make it a gyro, because what's better than grilled cheese sandwiches than cheese sandwiches grilled? Hello shepherds, welcome back, and if you're new here, hello. This is where we talk all things sheepy. My name is Megan, and if you can make a sandwich, you can make an amazing gyro. And we're making it all from scratch, and as local as possible. So let's start off with our condiments. These are best made ahead of time from the day before or longer. I've already showed you in the previous video how to make yogurt, which I'll link above. I don't recall if I showed you in that video or on another video if I've already showed you how to make it Greek style or super thick. So I'm going to cover it here too. I like my tzatziki sauce more of a cream cheese style where you can lay it on super thick and spread it onto the bread. So when it comes to the yogurt sauce, how thick or thin you want to go is really up to you. Our yogurt is already incubated and ready to go. Some may say that this spoonful right here is a really good consistency to use, but we're going to go extra thick. So let's go ahead and transfer our yogurt to a lint-free cloth and set it to hang anywhere high. I'm using my cabinet door for a couple hours or until it stops dripping. But also make sure to put a container underneath to catch all that delicious whey that's dripping off. If you want to reserve that whey for another recipe, you can, but a hot trick for thick yogurt is to reserve the whey, so if our strained yogurt ends up too thick, we can always stir some of that flavorful whey back into it and rehydrate that yogurt back up. Next, let's prepare a cucumber. Some people like to peel a cucumber. This really helps in removing bitterness that occurs in the peel. I kind of like it, so I'm leaving it on. It's an option for you though. Next, I'm removing the seedy center and then setting it aside in my mouth. For the rest of the cucumber, I'm just coarsely chopping it so that it can fit into our shoot. And then I'm going to shred it away. I think the hardest part of this step is trying to resist snacking on the cucumbers. Next, let's sprinkle about a pinch of salt over our cucumber shreds. And this helps encourage it to lose some of that water. And it'll also help in making our sauce extra thick. But if you want to spread thinner, skip or go light on this step. Using a similar technique to our yogurt, I'm going to be grabbing our ricotta basket to prop up our cucumber shreds above the bowl, and then let the salt work its magic for about 30 minutes. You can also leave the salted cucumber in the bowl to marinate over 30 minutes. Okay, so now let's grab an extra bowl and add our drained cucumber as well as our yogurt. If you ended up leaving it in the bowl, just give it a good squeeze and then pop it in. Okay, so now let's dice up our garlic. I usually toss in about 4 cloves of garlic, but my hand happened to pull off 5, so I'm using 5. And then add in all our diced garlic to our yogurt. Then let's add in 1 tablespoon or 14 grams of lemon juice. And then 1/4 of a teaspoon or about half a gram of black pepper. And then lastly, we need 3 tablespoons or 8 grams of dill. I'm using dried dill, so if you're using fresh dill, you're going to want to add some extra in there to compensate since it's a little wet. And then we want to stir everything in together and combine it. And don't forget to taste your yogurt base and adjust your seasonings to your preference, or your thickness or thinness by either adding some whey in or draining it some more actually. You can pop it into a cheesecloth and then drain some of it out if it's too thin. And then once it's ready, let's go ahead and pop it in our fridge and then use as needed. Okay, so next up, our next topping is going to be our quick pickled onions. I've made these for years and they're really great to garnish tacos and burgers and sandwiches in general. So first off, we're going to grab our onion. Both white or red onions work, but red onions tend to add that bit of pop of color that really helps break up that monochrome of all the sea of beige and green for a meal. So let's go ahead and slice up our onion. I prefer my onion slices to be paper thin, so when I'm draping my onions over the sandwiches, it takes the form of the sandwich and tends to stay in place better, especially when our sandwiches are super loaded. If you prefer your onions to be more crispy and more like a sandwich pickle style, then slice them thicker. I'm just slicing our onions and then packing them into a jar. Any small jam jar really will work with this recipe. Next, let's add in our 1 teaspoon or 5 grams of salt and sprinkle in about 1 teaspoon or 2 grams of black pepper. And then we're going to dust everything with about 1/4 of a cup or 54 grams of granulated sugar. Lastly, we're going to top off our jar with our lightly flavored vinegar of whatever choice that you like. I'm using rice wine vinegar, but if you don't have rice wine vinegar, white vinegar works really well too. I'm just glugging it on in and then putting our top on and giving it a good shake to see how everything settles in. And then I like to check that liquid line and make sure the onions are below the vinegar, and then add more vinegar if needed. If you have a pickle weight, that's an option too to help keep them submerged. But as they are now, they're ready to pop in the fridge and age for a minimum of an hour, but preferably longer. Okay, so now let's work on our bread. I'm taking inspiration from King Arthur's Flour's flatbread recipe. So in a bowl, we're going to add around 2 cups or 250 grams of flour. I'm using all-purpose flour. About 1.5 teaspoons of instant yeast, as well as 1 teaspoon or 4 grams of baking powder. And we're going to add 3/4 of a cup or 170 grams of water and 1 teaspoon or 14 grams of olive oil. I like to mix it together a little first and then add our salt, just because I get really worried about the salt touching the yeast and killing it. So next we're going to knead it in well with a paddle attachment on our mixture. It's a little sticky, but it's ready to proof for about 30 minutes. Unfortunately, I lost track of time, so instead of proofing at a normal temperature, I'm going to transfer it to an oiled container and then pop it in the fridge. This slows down the proofing process, and hopefully, usually, this works really well when I can't finish a bread and I need to come back to it later on. Okay, so now I'm back, and let's finish our bread by pulling it out of the fridge and let it warm up a little bit. I'm giving it about 10-15 minutes to come to room temperature. I'm using a preloaded canvas cloth and then shaping them into about 8 equally shaped balls. They're weighing between 50 to 60 grams each and about the size a little bigger than a ping pong ball or golf ball. Then we're going to set our balls aside and cover them up. This is to relax that gluten, so then when we want to roll them out, they'll roll out nice and thin. This is going to be about 5 to 8 minutes. And usually I bake these all at once in the oven, but for fun, let's go ahead and pop them on a skillet. So on medium-high heat, I tend to find that they actually retain their softness a lot better on a higher heat than on a lower heat, where they tend to come out a little bit more stiff. So this step gets to be really fast. I'm just flipping them back and forth to see if they're brown on the bottom side. If they haven't browned, then I flip them back and let them cook a little bit more. And then once they're that brown texture, then I go ahead and flip them again and then cook them for about a minute or two until both sides are browned basically. And then we're going to continue working one at a time until all 8 of our breads are rolled out and then browned on both sides. Okay, so next up, we're going to cook our halloumi, also on a dry pan. I've made this halloumi ahead of time from a gallon of sheep's milk, which makes enough cheese to use for about 2 dinners, and then stored our extra cheese in a whey brine. So to prepare our cheese for frying, I'm going to go ahead and slice it to about 3 to 4 millimeters, or maybe it's an 1/8 of an inch thick, and then cook it in a dry pan. On busy nights, this is a fun cheese to just slice and grill, and keeping our cheese on standby in a whey-based brine really helps and prevent the halloumi from getting that slimy or off textures. So then we have some cheeses to choose from that are both fresh and aged for a really quick dinner prep. I'll link the halloumi recipe above. It's a pretty fast cheese to make, and the kids really love how the cheese squeaks, and it's kind of like a food, but also kind of reminds me of a silly squeaky toy. The dark lines in this cheese is some dried, wild, foraged yard mint, but the closest I've found in garden stores or nurseries in terms of flavor is the non-tropical or cold-hardy mojito mint varieties. I really love the flavor that the mint infuses into these cheeses, and I haven't really tried them with any other flavor actually. But how about you guys? What do you prefer in your halloumis? Let's see. If you're doing this on an open-faced grill or picnicking at the lake, these cheeses are really great grilled, but I do recommend cutting them a little bit thicker then I'm cutting here for the pan. And so once our cheeses are fully browned on both sides, we're going to set our cooked cheeses aside and assemble them. So we're going to grab our bread and spreading our tzatziki cream, covering the full base of our bread. And then I like to add a leaf of salad on top with some of the grilled cheese and then pickled onions. For cuteness, I'm going to wrap them up with some parchment paper and then tie it with a matching string, and it's ready to eat. It's really a light but also really filling dish. The halloumi alone is incredibly filling, and the tzatziki sauce, or maybe you can call it more like a cream, is bright and light as well. It's really easy on the pocketbook as well without feeling that pinch. Most of the ingredients can not only be made ahead of time, but also taste better with marinating. So there you have it. I think for picnics or travel, I would wrap it fully, but sometimes it's nice to bring all the little bits and assemble there. What do you think? Are you team make ahead and bring it ready to eat, or team bring all the components and then assemble it on site? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've made it this far, an extra special thank you. I appreciate you. Leave me a sandwich emoji in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss a sheepy take. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-tas.